This is George Santos. This is George Santos at home. Thanks, Dad. All right, we are here to talk about former Sheriff Mark Brave. He has resigned his position. A crazy story of corruption and just the most ridiculous story possible. I don't even know how else to summarize it. Going to be joined today by reporter Damien Fisher of nhjournal.com and In Depth New Hampshire. Please go check out both those websites, the great news outlets here in the state, as well as contributor Dexter Tarbox to break down the story.
He's charged with crimes. As an American, he is innocent until proven guilty. And so these are all allegations that we're going to talk about. And now that legal disclaimer's out of the way, this one's nuts. We started looking at Mark Brave, when his wife, Damien Brave, got arrested for drunk driving after a Christmas party in December. And, you know, I don't care if people are getting arrested for drunk driving, but he was in the car and he lied about it. That's later come out. He was telling everybody, no, I was home with the kids. And by everybody, I mean his bosses, the county commissioners, and who are also elected. I was home with the kids when, in fact, we got a hold of the police report, and he's in the car, and he's too drunk to drive either. And so the cops drop him off at a friend's house. So there were issues there, and there were something's going on. It later turns out we weren't the only people who were suspicious of him. The county started seeing strange charges on his credit card, again, allegedly, that didn't add up. And he starts getting investigated. They do an investigation about his lies about the DUI, and they ask him to step down for paid administrative leave. He refuses. They want to put him on the Lori list for cops with credibility issues. He's fighting that. This is all before anybody knows anything. Finally, the suspicious charges for a trip to Florida was enough for the county administrator, Ray Bowers, to go to the county attorney, who gets the AG involved. And yeah, so he's allegedly spending tens of thousands of dollars with the county credit card, taking girlfriends to Florida for nice romantic cruises in Boston, harbor cruises, Dunkin' Donuts trips, Great Wolf Lodge. Yeah, he's charged with stealing about $20,000 and lying to a grand jury. And just the squalidness of the charges, you know, it's 20 grand.
Yeah.
Where's Robert Menendez with his stacks of cash and gold bars?
I know.
He's going to Dunkin' Donuts. So that's where it was. That was a pretty good story. And then it gets better, because after he gets arraigned at the end of September, he's told, you have to stay in the state of New Hampshire. That's an order from the court. That's his bail order. And days later, he signs a lease for an apartment in Tewksbury, Massachusetts. Tells the court, I don't have money to pay for a lawyer. Can I please have my court-appointed lawyer? And by the way, New Hampshire's public defenders are some of the best lawyers you're ever going to see in a courtroom. When I go on my crime spree, I want a New Hampshire public defender. So he gets his free lawyer, but he prepays for his apartment a year's lease. That's like 50 grand.
Oh my God.
So, yeah. But he doesn't have money. And while he's in his new apartment, he gets a Porsche, I think a 356, 1968 Porsche 356. It's a soft top convertible, little coupe. I don't know how rare it is, but they go for, depending on the condition, about 100 grand. So he gets that delivered to his place in Massachusetts and posts pictures of it on his Instagram account. And this man was in law enforcement. You would think he would know how investigations work. I tried to get pictures of it. He's taken his account down, but the Attorney General of it. Yeah. The Attorney General got tipped off by someone in law enforcement who saw these pictures and sent them. So at this point, they're knocking on the door of the Dover apartment that he says he's living at, and they find his now ex-wife, Damien Brave, no, he doesn't live here. I live here. Yeah, he has money. We sold our house for $1.5 million as part of the divorce, and he got a big chunk of that.
I have a question at this point.
Sure.
How does a public servant come up with so much money like this to be able to afford $1.5 million home, $100,000 car? I mean, obviously, a lot of these charges are sent around the $19,000 or $20,000, but this is bonkers.
That is. Well, that's a great question. Part of the answer is up until she got arrested for drunk driving, Jamie Brave was the chief nursing officer at Frisbee Memorial Hospital. And Frisbee, interestingly enough, while she's chief nursing officer, hires Mark Brave's sheriff's department to do security for them. But they assure me there was no conflict of interest.
Of course. No, everything's above board. Don't worry about it. Everything's fine.
To yesterday in Rockingham Superior Court, where the prosecution wants to have his bail revoked because, along with everything else, he's on paid administrative leave pending trial on these charges. And he's living in Massachusetts. And at least according to this set of attorneys general, if you live outside of your district where you're elected, and he's an elected official, you can't serve as that elected official, and he's collecting his salary for that. That's theft. It's a good thing Troy Murner was only getting $100 a year to be the Lancaster state rep, right? So he's got at least $10,000 in salary while he's been living in Massachusetts. So in order to stay out of jail yesterday, he pulled a great surprise move. He quit, resigned his job. I'm waiting for a copy of his resignation letter. I was hoping to get that today. And yeah, so that's where he is. He's still out of jail for now, knock wood, because that means he can do more fun stuff. And I hopefully get to write about it. Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly. There's a lot of allegedly. We'll wait for the actual charges and cases and everything to progress along, but I have deep pity for. I actually know I've met Leif Becker before, who's his attorney, because he was a student at the law school when I worked over there. They're just a bunch of nice guys. This guy is just off the rails with what he's trying to pull off. And when did he get divorced in this whole timeline here?
I'm not sure.
I have some questions about that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, divorce records are not generally public, but I'm going to guess it's sometime between, honey, they're mad at me for the budget, and honey, I just got charged. Sometime around there, he had to have a conversation. The affidavit in the theft case, at one point, this is my favorite moment in this affidavit. They're going through video surveillance of him at a hotel with a woman, and he's kissing this woman, and she is not his wife. And the investigator asks him, "Who is she?" And he says, I honestly don't know. I've been dating a lot of people. So at least he's honest.
It's written for
Mark
TV.
Brave, I know. He's currently the most divorced man in New England.
Well, I do want to get back sort of to the question of his background and how we got here. But since we're on the topic of Jamie and the money issues, so as I understand it, despite selling his home for $1.5 million, sending his children to private school, as he claims, he collected over $10K in income from a job he wasn't performing.
Yeah.
As you said, at one not too distant point, he had a secondary income from his wife's former employer, also buying this Porsche, which he's bragging about. He goes in and he cries poverty in court, which the courts rejected. Yeah. But one of the expenses he's blaming this destitution he's on is divorce expenses. And so that's why I was wondering, do we know if he's referring to the divorce specifically from, as she's called, Jamie Brave, or is this potentially a previous divorce? And I'll tell you the reason I ask is because not unlike a lot of his backstory, there seems to be some question that I've seen raised as to whether Jamie and Mark are in fact legally married, because just like divorce records, the marriage records are also not typically public. And it does seem that their mortgage documents dating from the present, 2023, all the way back to 2016 in Dover, name them as individuals, with her name as Jamie Spencer on the documents. So there is some question as to whether or not they were married.
Point. Yeah, I don't know. I've reached out to Jamie and she's not responded. Why? I don't know. I generally try not to get in too much into people's, private married life, but it is becoming a question. I think a lot of the expenses had to do with the house. They didn't own that free and clear, obviously. So, when they sold it, they had to pay off whatever they owed on it, I imagine. So that must have been part of whatever divorce settlement there was, any sort of mutual debts, credit cards, car payments, things like that, insurance. According to the court records, they did clear quite a bit of money after they paid everything from the house sale. So, there are a lot of questions about this guy's background. He didn't really have an extensive law enforcement career before he got elected sheriff. I believe he was I want to say an auxiliary police officer, which is like a volunteer position. He was directing traffic.
I know Foster's did some reports, rather surprisingly. Foster's did some reporting on this, and it came out rather late. And that's one of the things I'm interested in, if we kind of got back to the beginning, even, is the timeline of this. But the Foster's reporting did come out that, in fact, a lot of his resume was either exaggerated substantially or potentially even fabricated in many places. Both his educational and his professional resume was very much inflated when he ran for office.
I think the word you want is bogus. It was a bogus resume, and that's something that that happens from time to time. Somebody shows up and I've got a master's in what was it, like criminal forensics, something like that. Or he was claiming degrees from programs that don't exist, I believe, was one of the contentions. And when asked about it, I believe his response was, oops. So it's not hard to find red flags with this guy. And the question you have to ask is, how did he get elected? Didn't anybody check? And county sheriff, we're not talking like you have to run for Congress or Senate or anything like it's not even run for select board. No one's doing like opposition research.
That's the thing. I have the same question, just generally. Where does the responsibility fall getting this? Was it the voters' fault for bringing him in, or was it the media's fault for not covering it? But really, though, I think when you look at, again, going all the way back, as I believe you noted in some of your earliest reporting on this, Brave seemed well on his way to becoming a real darling of the New Hampshire Democratic Party. He's endorsed by Cindy Warmington, who's the gubernatorial candidate. On the campaign, he's pictured with the likes of David Waters and Senator Hassan. He's the first black elected sheriff, and he generally says all the things that gratify other progressive liberals. So he had great liberal bona fides, but that seems completely uninvestigated as to what his actual professional and educational background was. Was it a failure on the part of the Democratic Party?
Well, with a guy like Mark Brave, it's hard to. I don't like blaming other people for the fact that he's a dirtbag, allegedly. Sure, the local press, could have looked a little bit harder, right? And probably they should. And I guarantee you, there are people in that newsroom who, wanted to kick a cat after this stuff came out because they didn't do that. And should the voters have known? Well, how are they going to know?
Yeah.
Someone's got to do it. Should the state party, should the Democrats have maybe vetted their candidate? Sure, but they're also running 400 candidates for the state house. It's hard to blame other people for the fact that Mark Brave is Mark Brave.
Yeah. It seems like
but
the thesis of the downfall of local journalism in modern culture, because the funds aren't there for this hyper local journalism to cover these candidates,
right.
is an example of what can go wrong.
Well, it's it's one of those things. Yeah, you would want to think if there was. I think the Seacoast used to have competing daily newspapers, right? Foster's. You had the Portsmouth Herald, and now you've got like these zombie newspapers out there that are, and they probably have a staff smaller than this conversation. So yeah, there's nobody really checking anybody's resume, and I know that there were questions raised about his police background before he got elected, and nobody's checking it. Part of that is nobody wanted to go attack the New Hampshire's possibly first black sheriff.
Yeah, especially a Democrat. You're gonna get the whole
Democrat,
establishment come after you.
Exactly.
Well,
if this was Eddie Edwards, sure, but
yeah, yeah, exactly. Poor Eddie.
But he had this really rather sudden fall from grace, which seems to have started with the DUI with his wife, where he was also arrested. But then, as you said, the county commissioners investigate the spending abnormality, improprieties that he's now accused of, and he responded to that by accusing the chair of the county commission, who's a Democrat, who's well respected on both sides of the aisle. But again, this is a Democrat who introduced Hillary Clinton when she campaigned in Dover in her presidential campaign in 2016. But again, well respected on both sides, accused him of racism as a way to explain away the investigation into him. That seems to me to be a red flag, especially because George Milagros is very well known, and those accusations didn't seem to hold water to anyone who knew him. I mean, that would be a red flag. Again, it's after his election. But were there not more red flags out there that this was not a good guy? Could we have caught this any earlier?
Again, that's hard to say, because the lead actor in this drama is Mark Brave. You know what I mean? Like,
is he that good a liar? Is that what it is? He's just such a performer and allegedly such an inveterate liar that he really did. Because it's not a small community. Stratford County, it has its rural parts, but it's also, Dover is the largest growing city in New Hampshire. I mean, it has an urban population. Did he really fool us?
Part of it has to do with police culture as well. There's a certain deference that the general public, the general public who vote, will have toward police officers, right? And so, you're not going to question this guy. He seems like a good guy. Other cops will always defend other cops. So, yeah, there's always going to be a bit of a bubble of protection around somebody like this. And that type of culture, that type of world, it's really easy for bad actors to get away with stuff. I covering crime for a lot of years. I like most of the cops that I've dealt with. I think, most police officers are good, decent guys, but we all know the bad ones. And there's something about the culture of policing that allows people to get away with stuff, because there is that inclination for them to protect themselves. It's a closed culture, right? And so he's created the appearance that he's one of them, right? Even though he's got this questionable resume. So he's a cop. Other cops are going to back him. But I really think, things started falling apart for him, reading between the lines, when his deputies stopped backing him. And that happened this spring when the county brought in Municipal Resources Incorporated to investigate Brave over where were you on the night your wife was arrested for DUI. He's going around telling everybody, I was at home. She should have called an Uber. Meanwhile, I'm the one who told the county administrator, no, the police report says he was there. So, I think at that point when other deputies started saying, hey, wait a second, that's when things started falling apart for him. When, and like I said earlier, the pictures of the Porsche, that didn't come from a member of the public. That came from someone within law enforcement who sent it to the Attorney General's office. So, you can get away with it until you can't.
Once again, indepthnh.org and nhjournal.com to get more of what Damien's writing, and find all of us on Twitter. New England Take on all your podcast platforms, as well as liking and subscribing down on YouTube. You got to do it. Let's keep this outlet rolling here. And definitely check out the shorts. I've been having some fun putting some of those together. Definitely check out newenglandtake.com. All sorts of writings and articles and such over there too. Talk to you soon.